The Mafia boss was seated at the wedding table for people nobody knew where to put, beside the one woman in the room everyone had already decided not to see. Rowan Callister noticed both things before she even reached her chair. She noticed the little cream card with her name written in gold ink, the tiny black number printed beneath it, and the way the young woman holding the seating chart gave her a smile that looked sorry before it looked polite. Table 9. Rowan almost laughed. Of course, every wedding had one. The table near the edge of the room, not close enough to the bride to feel loved, not close enough to the bar to feel lucky, full of old co-workers, distant cousins, divorced friends, single friends, and people whose names made the planner pause and ask, "Where should we put this one?" Rowan had been this one for most of her life. She stood beneath a ceiling covered in hanging flowers and soft white lights, while 100 beautiful people drifted through the reception hall like they had been born knowing where to place their hands. The wedding was in Asheville, in a restored mountain estate with stone walls, tall windows, and a view that made every guest pull out their phone before they remembered they were supposed to be present. Outside, the Blue Ridge Mountains sat in the evening haze, deep blue and quiet, like secrets with snow on their shoulders. Inside, everything smelled like roses, champagne, roasted peaches, and money. Rowan had expected the night to be uncomfortable. She had dressed for discomfort. A dark green dress, simple earrings, low heels she could survive in, lipstick that made her feel less like she had come to prove a point, and more like she had remembered herself on purpose. She had driven 3 hours alone after telling herself at least 12 times that she could still turn around. Preston had been her friend once, a real friend, the kind who used to eat gas station nachos with her after study group and tell her she was too funny to waste her life apologizing. Then years passed. Preston became a man with a lake house family and a bride named Camille who looked like sunlight had decided to become a person. Rowan became a forensic bookkeeper who spent her days finding missing money in places rich people hoped no one would look. They still texted on birthdays. They still cared in that faded adult way. So when the invitation came, Rowan had said yes before she could think too hard about it. Then she ended a 7-year relationship 2 months before the wedding, and the yes turned into a problem. Her ex, Marcus, had been good at making loneliness sound like her fault. He never yelled. That would have been too honest. He sighed. He corrected. He said things like, "You know I love your confidence, but maybe that dress is a little loud." He said, "I'm just trying to help you come across better." He said, "People judge, Rowan. I don't. I'm on your side." By the end, being loved by him felt like living inside a room where the mirrors had all been adjusted by someone who hated her shape. Leaving had not made her instantly brave. It had only made her free in a way that still trembled. So she had come alone. She had promised herself she would smile, hug Preston, compliment Camille, eat the expensive chicken, survive the speeches, and leave before the slow dances turned cruel. That was the plan. A calm plan. A reasonable plan. A plan that did not include being seated beside Elias Marsh. She saw him before she reached the table. Everyone saw him. Not because he was loud. He was the opposite of loud. He sat as if silence itself had pulled out his chair. A tall man in a black suit too formal for a mountain wedding, with dark hair brushed back from a face made of sharp bones and quiet warnings. He had one hand resting near his water glass, the other against the arm of his chair. He was not checking his phone. He was not laughing with strangers. He was simply watching the room, and somehow the room was behaving better because of it. 2 men stood near the wall behind him, not close enough to be called bodyguards by someone trying to be polite, but not far enough to be mistaken for guests. Rowan knew dangerous men when she saw them, though most of the danger in her life had worn sweaters and called itself reasonable. Elias Marsh was different. His danger did not need translation. It sat around him like weather. The woman with the seating chart, touched Rowan's elbow lightly. "You're right there," she whispered, pointing toward table 9. Rowan looked at the empty chair beside Elias. Then she looked back at the woman. "That feels less like a seating assignment and more like a legal test." The woman blinked, startled, then gave a nervous laugh. "I'm sure it's fine. People say that before disasters." The woman's smile weakened. Rowan felt a little sorry for her and a little proud of herself. 2 months ago, she would have softened the joke before anyone could think she was difficult. Tonight, she let it stand. She walked to table 9 with her shoulders back. The other guests had already formed the quiet panic of people seated beside someone terrifying. A man in a tan suit kept reading the menu as if it might contain emergency instructions. An older woman twisted her pearl necklace around one finger. A young cousin of the groom stared hard at the dance floor, though nobody was dancing yet. Elias Marsh looked up only when Rowan reached the chair beside him. His eyes were grey, not soft grey, not storm grey either, because that sounded dramatic, and Rowan disliked giving men free poetry. His eyes were the colour of river stones after rain, cold at first glance, worn smooth by things that had moved over them for years. He looked at her name card, then at her face. Rowan waited for the tiny reaction people always thought they hid, the flicker downward. The quick measurement of her body, the decision. Too big, too much, not enough. She had watched that decision arrive on faces since she was 12 years old, and a boy at church asked if her mother packed her 2 lunches. She had learned to make jokes faster than people could make wounds. Elias did not look away quickly. He did not look down and pretend he had not. He simply studied her, as if she were not an accident. That almost made her more nervous. "You're in my chair," she said. One eyebrow moved slightly. "Am I?" "That depends. Are you Rowan Callister?" "No." "Then yes." The man in the tan suit stopped pretending to read the menu. Elias looked at the card in front of the empty seat, then slowly moved his glass 2 inches to the left. "My mistake. That was very dramatic for a water glass. It was heavy with regret." Rowan sat before she could smile too much. "I've always wondered what regret looked like when it had money. That did it." Not a full laugh, not even close, but the corner of Elias Marsh's mouth shifted, just enough to make the older woman with the pearls stare as though a statue had winked. "You know who I am?" he asked. "I know who everyone is pretending not to know you are." "That is different?" "Very. One is knowledge, the other is theatre." He leaned back slightly. "And, do you enjoy theatre, Miss Callister?" "Only when the actors remember they're being watched." For a moment, he said nothing. Around them, the reception moved in soft bursts of music and glass and laughter. Camille swept past in white lace, radiant, and followed by 3 bridesmaids who looked like springtime had organized itself by height. Preston was somewhere near the bar, surrounded by men clapping his shoulder like marriage was a sport he had just won. Rowan watched him laugh, and something gentle twisted inside her. She was happy for him. She really was. Happiness just looked strange from a table where no one expected you to belong. Elias followed her gaze. "Old friend? Old enough that we knew each other before either of us had taste. Dangerous age. College? Taste." She smiled into her water glass. "You're not as impossible as your suit wants me to think." His eyes dropped briefly to his own black jacket. The suit has its own reputation. It's a wedding in the mountains. You look like you came to buy the moon and close 3 businesses before dessert. That was tomorrow. Try to pace yourself. This time, the small laugh escaped him. It was quiet and rusty, like it had been stored somewhere and not used enough. Rowan felt it in a place she did not want to name. Not attraction exactly. Not yet. Curiosity. The dangerous little first spark of it. Elias turned his glass once on the table. "People usually speak softer to me. Maybe they're worried you'll have them removed. Would that worry you?" "Depends. removed from the wedding or from existence. The man in the tan suit coughed into his napkin. Elias did not look away from Rowan. "From the wedding," he said. "Then no, my heels already hurt. And from existence? I'd be irritated. I drove here myself." The older woman with the pearls made a tiny sound that might have been horror or delight. Rowan could not tell. Elias looked at her for a long second, and something behind his controlled expression shifted, not softened. That would have been too simple. It opened, just a little. "You are not afraid of me," he said. Rowan took a sip of water. "That's not true. No, I'm afraid of plenty. Black ice, men who say they're just being honest, hotel pillows with decorative buttons, the phrase, family-style dining. You're on the list somewhere, but not near the top yet. Should I be offended? You should be patient. There's still time." He watched her, and suddenly she understood something. He was used to people giving him fear before conversation. He was used to being handled, placed, avoided, whispered around. He was used to becoming a symbol the moment he entered a room. Monster, boss, threat, weapon. Rowan knew something about that, though her symbol was softer and crueler. Funny fat girl, safe friend, good personality, brave for wearing that. She had spent years watching people turn her into an idea so they would not have to deal with the trouble of her being a person. Maybe Elias recognized that too. The first course arrived, something tiny and green on a plate too large for its own confidence. Rowan looked down at it. Elias said, "You disapprove. I respect any salad brave enough to arrive alone in a bowl that size. It may have enemies. It has me." He picked up his fork. "Should I intervene?" "Only if it asks for protection." His eyes lingered on her. "You dislike protection?" "No, I dislike when people call control protection because it sounds nicer on invitations." The words came out lightly, but not light enough. She heard the edge. So did he. Elias did not rush to fill the silence. He did not make the mistake most men made, stepping into a woman's pain with boots on and calling it interest. He only nodded once, as if she had given him a fact, not a wound. "Fair," he said. It was a small answer. It should not have mattered. It did. Dinner moved slowly after that, in the strange way wedding dinners do, where time stretches between courses and strangers become either friends or evidence against event planning. Rowan learned that Elias disliked sweet wine, tolerated small talk with the expression of a man being politely poisoned, and could identify every exit in the room without turning his head. Elias learned that Rowan hated being asked if she was so brave for traveling alone, could spot a fake donor smile from 20 feet away, and had once found an $80,000 embezzlement hidden inside a line item labeled Seasonal Garden Outreach. "What is seasonal garden outreach?" he asked. "A rich person's way of saying, 'No one checked the receipts.'" "And you did?" "I always check the receipts." His gaze sharpened with interest. Not polite interest, real interest. That sounds like a warning. It is, if you have receipts. "I have many. I'm sure they're terrifying. Some are boring. That's worse. People hide terrible things inside boring folders." Elias looked at her in a way that made the noise around them fade for a second. "Yes," he said quietly. "They do." Before Rowan could ask what he meant, laughter cut across the room. Not normal laughter, pointed laughter, the kind meant to land somewhere. She knew that sound too. Her spine tightened before she turned. Across the reception hall, at a table closer to the windows, Derek Vale sat with one arm draped over the back of his chair and a champagne glass loose in his hand. He was handsome in the shiny, polished way some men became when they trusted expensive tailoring more than character. Blonde hair, clean jaw, perfect smile. A man who had probably been called charming by people who never had to say no to him. He was looking directly at Rowan and Elias. Not just looking, performing looking. He leaned toward the woman beside him and said something Rowan could not hear. The woman's eyes jumped to Rowan's body, then away. Derek smiled wider. Another man at the table laughed with his mouth closed, like cowardice had manners. Rowan felt heat crawl up her throat. There it was, the old familiar burn. The small public violence no one wanted to call violence because no one had been touched. The quick glance, the shared joke, the silent agreement that her body made her available for comment. She could feel herself being dragged back through every room where she had pretended not to notice. Every pool party, every office holiday photo, every restaurant booth where a host looked at her hips before choosing a table. Every time Marcus had squeezed her hand and said, "Ignore them," then acted like his embarrassment was kindness. Beside her, Elias went very still. Not angry, in an obvious way. Worse, quiet. The air around him changed. The men by the wall noticed first. One of them straightened. The guests at table 9 seemed to stop breathing again. Rowan looked at Elias. His eyes had gone cold enough to make the candles feel useless. "Don't," she said. He turned to her slowly. "Don't what?" "Whatever your face is planning." "My face is not planning anything. Your face has already formed a committee." Derek laughed again, louder this time. Rowan heard the end of it. "Maybe Marsh has gotten generous," Derek said, voice carrying just enough. "Charity seems to be the theme tonight." The table around him went quiet in the wrong way. Rowan felt the words hit. She let them. Then she set her napkin beside her plate and stood. Elias's hand moved once, almost reaching, then stopped before touching her. That single restraint registered somewhere deep in her. He wanted to stop her. He did not. "Rowan," he said. She looked down at him. "Relax. I'm just going to make friends." That man does not have friends. Then this will be educational. She walked across the reception hall slowly, not because she was trying to be dramatic, but because moving too fast would have made it look like he had hurt her. He had. But Derek Vale did not deserve the satisfaction of seeing the bruise form. People watched her go. Of course they did. Rooms always watched fat women when they stood up with purpose, waiting for clumsiness, waiting for anger, waiting for proof that their first judgment had been correct. Rowan gave them none of it. She reached Derek's table, pulled out the empty chair beside him, and sat down with a smile. Derek's eyebrows lifted. "Can I help you?" "I hope so," Rowan said. "I didn't want to misquote you." His smile shifted. "Excuse me? You were talking about me from across the room, and I hate missing context. If you're going to stare at the fat girl and the scary man, I think you should at least say the joke clearly." The silence came so fast it felt physical. A fork touched a plate somewhere nearby with a tiny silver sound. The woman beside Derek looked down at her champagne, as if it might save her. One of the men at the table suddenly became interested in the flowers. Derek's smile stayed, but it thinned. "I think you misunderstood." "No, you think I was supposed to." His eyes cooled. "That's a strong accusation from someone I don't know." "Good news. You can learn my name before your apology. Rowan Callister." He glanced at her body again, quick and cruel. "Derek Vale. I know. You have the face of a man whose family name enters rooms before he does, and cleans up after him when he leaves." That smile vanished for half a second. There he was. Not the polished guest, not the charming man, the little blade under the cloth. Across the room, Elias had turned in his chair to watch. He did not rise. He did not storm across the floor. He watched like a man witnessing something rare and taking care not to frighten it away. Derek leaned closer, his voice lowered. "You have no idea what kind of room you're sitting in." Rowan kept her smile. "Neither do you." His eyes flicked toward Elias. "Is he using you? For what? Emotional contrast?" A dangerous pause. Derek's mouth curved again. You're funny. And you're predictable. We all bring gifts. The woman beside him made the mistake of laughing. Softly, accidentally. Derek heard it. His jaw tightened. Rowan stood, smoothing the front of her dress, as if the conversation had been nothing more than weather. Next time, speak up. Some of us at the inconvenient table enjoy a well-built insult. She turned and walked back before her knees could remember fear. Only when she reached table 9 did she breathe fully again. Elias was still watching her, but the look on his face had changed. Earlier, he had looked at her with curiosity. Now he looked at her like she had done something more dangerous than insult a cruel man in public. Like she had stepped into a room full of knives and rearranged the furniture. She sat beside him. No one at the table spoke. Then Elias said, very quietly, "You moved a chair." Rowan picked up her water. It was empty. Not to him. She looked at Derek's table. He was smiling again, but now it looked nailed on. Men like that think every empty chair belongs to them. Elias's gaze remained on her. And you disagree? I think a chair belongs to whoever is tired of standing. The older woman with the pearls pressed her napkin to her mouth, and Rowan realized she was smiling. Elias looked down at his plate for a moment. When he looked back, there was something almost warm in his eyes. Almost. You did not need saving, he said. No. I know. That answer should have been ordinary. It was not, because most people either wanted to save Rowan to feel noble or leave her alone to feel comfortable. Elias had done neither. He had let her walk into danger and trusted her to return. For the rest of the evening, the room felt different. Not safer, not exactly, more awake. Derek did not look at her again, which told Rowan he was thinking about her far more than before. Elias's men watched the room with renewed attention. Camille cut the cake while Preston cried and pretended he had something in his eye. Rowan laughed at the speeches, drank one glass of champagne, and tried not to notice how naturally Elias had begun leaning toward her when she spoke. Near the end of the reception, Preston finally made his way to her table. His tie was loose, his face bright with happiness and exhaustion. "Rowan," he said, pulling her into a hug, "you came. I was promised cake and emotional discomfort." He laughed against her shoulder. "You look amazing." "I know. I've been very brave about it." Preston pulled back, smiling, but his eyes flicked past her to Elias and sharpened with surprise. "I see you met Elias. You placed me beside him." "No," Preston frowned. "I didn't." The music seemed to soften around them. Rowan's smile held, but something cold touched the back of her neck. "You didn't." Camille's planner did the final chart. There were last-minute changes with family drama, cousins, some people not showing up. He looked uncomfortable now. Was it okay? Rowan glanced at Elias. Elias was no longer watching Preston. He was watching the room. "It was interesting," she said. Preston lowered his voice. "Just be careful around Derek Vale. I saw you talking to him." "Talking is generous. He's connected to Camille's extended family. Not close, just close enough to be annoying." Elias spoke then. "Close enough to be useful to someone." Preston looked at him, and for a second, the happy groom disappeared under worry. What does that mean? It means seating charts rarely make mistakes by themselves. Rowan felt the sentence settle under her skin. Before she could ask more, Camille appeared in a rush of white lace and perfume, kissed Rowan's cheek, squeezed Preston's arm, and was pulled away again by a photographer calling for family. The moment passed, but it did not leave. The reception ended close to midnight. Guests spilled into the cold mountain air under a canopy of lights. Cars rolled up the long driveway. Women carried their heels in one hand and their dignity in the other. Rowan stood near the entrance waiting for the valet, her wrap pulled tight around her shoulders. Elias stood beside her. "Not too close, not far either. You're quiet." he said. I'm deciding whether this night was charming, alarming, or legally significant. Can it be all three? That would explain my headache. A black car arrived for him first. One of his men opened the rear door. Elias did not move toward it. Rowan looked at him. This is where you vanish into the night, right? Usually. But I am considering asking for your phone number. Her heart made an unreasonable little movement. Do Mafia bosses usually ask? No. Growth is important. His mouth curved. Is that a yes? That depends. Are you going to call me for normal reasons or mysterious reasons? I do very few things for normal reasons. At least you're honest. Not always. The answer should have warned her away. Instead, the honesty of it held her still. Rowan took his phone when he offered it and typed in her number. She saved her contact as Rowan Callister, table 9, because she could not help herself. When she handed it back, he looked at the screen and gave that quiet, unused laugh again. Good night, Elias Marsh. Good night, Rowan Callister. Her car arrived. She got in before she could do something foolish, like look back twice. She looked back once. He was still standing beneath the soft lights, black suit, cold air, dangerous name, and that strange, calm attention fixed on her, as if the whole wedding had emptied out and left only one thing worth seeing. By the time Rowan reached her small hotel near downtown Asheville, her phone had already started buzzing. Violet first, of course. Her sister never texted once when she could send 7 messages in a row. Are you alive? Why are you standing next to Elias Marsh? Please tell me that is a themed wedding actor. Rowan. Answer me before I call the police and embarrass both of us. Rowan sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the green dress, and stared at the photo Violet had sent. It had been taken from across the reception hall. Rowan and Elias at table 9, heads tilted toward each other, both smiling in a way that looked more intimate than it had felt at the time, and more honest than Rowan wanted to admit now. Around them, the room blurred into gold and white. They looked like a secret someone had caught before it learned to hide. Another message appeared, this one from an unknown number. You made an enemy tonight. Rowan's stomach tightened. A second message followed. You also made me laugh. She did not need a name. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. Those are not equally comforting. The reply came almost instantly. No, but both are true. Rowan should have put the phone down. She should have washed her face, taken off the dress, and reminded herself that men like Elias Marsh did not drift into ordinary lives without bringing shadows behind them. She should have remembered Derek's cold smile, Preston's confusion, Elias's warning about seating charts. She should have slept. Instead, she smiled. Then someone knocked softly on her hotel room door. The smile disappeared. Rowan stood very still. The knock came again, not loud, not impatient. 2 gentle taps, then silence. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Do not open your door. This time the message was from Elias. A slow, soft fear moved through the room. Rowan stepped backward from the door, her bare feet quiet on the carpet. Another buzz. Are you alone? She typed with shaking thumbs. Yes. A pause. Then answer your phone. It rang before she could breathe. She accepted the call and pressed it to her ear. Elias's voice came through low and controlled, but there was something beneath it now, something colder than concern. Rowan, he said, listen carefully. Move away from the door. She did. The hallway outside remained silent. What is happening? She whispered. Someone followed you from the wedding. Her fingers tightened around the phone. Derek? I don't know yet. That is not as helpful as I hoped. I have men in the lobby. They are coming up now. You have men in the lobby? Yes, because that's normal. Tonight, it is. Another soft sound came from the other side of the door. Not a knock this time. A slide, like paper moving over carpet. Rowan looked down. A cream envelope appeared under the door. Her name was not on it. The black ink across the front read, Elias Marsh. For a moment, neither she nor Elias said anything. Then his voice changed. "Rowan," he said, each word careful, "do not touch that envelope." But Rowan was already staring at the thin, dark stain spreading slowly across one corner, and somehow she knew, with the strange, deep certainty that comes before disaster, that Table 9 had never been a mistake at all. Rowan had always believed fear had a sound. Sometimes it was loud, like a slammed door or a voice sharpened into a threat. Sometimes it was quiet, like the soft slide of an envelope under a hotel room door just after midnight, while a dangerous man on the phone told her not to touch it. She stood barefoot on the carpet with her green dress brushing her knees, her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. The cream envelope lay near the door like a thing that had crawled inside by itself. Elias Marsh's name was written across the front in black ink, clean and elegant, and the corner was stained with something dark enough to make her imagination behave badly. "Rowan," Elias said in her ear, "tell me you moved away from the door." "I moved." "How far?" "Far enough to feel dramatic. This is not the time." "I know," she whispered. "That is why I'm talking too much." There was a pause on the line. Not empty, not calm. She could hear movement behind his voice now. A car door closing, a man speaking low. Elias was not in some safe, distant office. He was moving toward her. That should not have comforted her. It did anyway. "Look through the peephole," he said, slowly. "Do not stand in front of the door longer than you have to." Rowan stepped sideways, leaned just enough, and looked out. The hallway appeared empty. Warm lights, beige walls, a little framed painting of a mountain stream that suddenly felt too peaceful to be trusted. No person, no shadow, no sound except the hush of hotel air through vents. "No one," she said. "Do not open it. You already said that. I will say it until you obey it." "That's not my favorite word." I noticed. She almost smiled, and that felt insane. The envelope was still on the floor. Someone had followed her from the wedding. Someone had touched her door. Someone had meant for Elias to receive whatever lay inside, but had delivered it to her instead. Or worse, they had meant for her to receive it, and only used his name to make sure she understood she had stepped into something with teeth. A knock came again, sharper this time. Rowan jerked back. "Not the door," Elias said quickly. "My men." "How do I know that?" A different voice spoke through the wood, calm and flat. "Miss Callister, my name is Simon. Mr. Marsh sent me. I'm with hotel security and another member of his staff. We need you to step back from the entrance." Rowan looked through the peephole again. Two men stood outside now. One wore a gray suit and had the patient expression of someone who had never needed to raise his voice. The other was a hotel security guard with a key card in one hand and worry all over his face. Behind them, farther down the hall, a housekeeper's cart sat abandoned near the ice machine. Elias said, "The man in gray is Simon. He has worked for me for 9 years. He has a scar over his left eyebrow." "He does. He will not enter unless you allow it." That part stopped her for half a breath. Not because of danger, because of the permission inside it. Rowan unlocked the deadbolt and chain, then opened the door only a few inches. Simon did not push. He did not step forward. His eyes went first to her face, then to the envelope on the floor, then to the hallway behind him. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." "Did you touch it?" "No." His shoulders lowered by one careful inch. "Good." "That's not comforting either." "No, ma'am." Simon used a handkerchief to lift the envelope by one edge and placed it inside a clear plastic garment bag the hotel security guard produced from somewhere with trembling hands. Rowan had the strange thought that men like Elias Marsh probably made ordinary objects become evidence just by looking at them. "Miss Callister," Simon said, "we need to move you to another room. I have shoes somewhere. You have time to put them on." That sounds like something people say when there is not actually time. Simon looked at her with a quiet respect that told her he had already learned something about her from Elias. "You have 3 minutes." Rowan took 2. She shoved clothes into her overnight bag without folding them, which felt like a personal failure and also like survival. She changed out of the green dress in the bathroom with the door cracked because she could no longer stand the idea of being in a room with only one exit and no line of sight. She pulled on jeans, a black sweater, and the low boots she had nearly worn to the wedding before deciding she deserved beauty for one night. By the time she stepped back into the room, Simon had checked the window, the closet, the bathroom, the air vent, and somehow made the bed look guilty. Elias stayed on the phone the entire time. "You're still there?" Rowan asked, as Simon guided her into the hall. "Yes. You're very committed to being alarming. Tonight, I am committed to being correct." They took the service elevator instead of the guest one. The hotel security guard kept apologizing under his breath, as if Rowan had been personally disappointed by his building. In the basement garage, a black SUV waited with its engine running. Simon opened the back door. Rowan stopped. "I'm not getting into a mystery car," Elias's voice said. "I am 5 minutes away. Then I can wait 5 minutes. You cannot wait in a public garage. You're asking me to trust men I met 4 seconds ago." "I am. And you see how that sounds?" Another pause. Then Elias said to Simon, "Put her in the front passenger seat." Simon blinked once, then opened the front door instead. Rowan understood. From the front, she could see the road. She could see the driver. She could open the door faster if she needed to. It was a small adjustment. It mattered more than it should have. She got in. The car pulled out of the garage and into Asheville's quiet midnight streets. The city looked softer at that hour. All dark storefronts, wet pavement, old brick, and mountains resting somewhere beyond the glow. Rowan held her phone so tightly her fingers hurt. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To a place I control," Elias said. I hate that phrasing. A place where I know every entrance, exit, camera, and employee. I hate that less. Good. The SUV drove for 12 minutes. Rowan counted without meaning to. Counting gave panic something to do. They passed quiet restaurants, a closed bookstore with a yellow light still burning in the window, a mural of bright birds across the side of a building, then turned onto a narrow road that climbed toward darker trees. At the top sat a small hotel that did not look like a hotel at all, more like an old stone house someone had convinced money to behave inside. There were no large signs, no valet, no drunk wedding guests carrying shoes, just lanterns, iron gates, and a view of the city spread below like fallen stars. Elias stood outside when the SUV arrived. He had removed his tie. That was the first thing Rowan noticed, and she hated herself for noticing anything besides the danger. His black suit jacket was open, his hair slightly disturbed by the wind, his face calm in the way deep water was calm before you realized you could drown in it. He came to her side of the car, but did not open her door. He waited. Rowan opened it herself. His eyes moved over her quickly, not in the way men usually checked her body. This was different. Injuries, fear, shoes, coat, hands. He was making sure she was whole. "I'm fine," she said. "No, you are not." "I am standing." That is not the same thing. She should have snapped at him. Instead, the kindness hiding under his flat tone made her eyes sting, and that annoyed her more than anything. "Do not be nice right now. I have a limited ability to handle that." His expression changed by the smallest amount. "Then I will be practical." "Thank you." He turned and led her inside. The old hotel was empty except for 3 staff members who seemed to know better than to stare. A fire burned in a stone hearth. Rain tapped softly against high windows, though Rowan had not noticed when it began. Elias brought her to a private sitting room with dark green walls, bookshelves, 2 leather chairs, and a table already holding tea, coffee, bottled water, and a plate of sandwiches cut into neat triangles. Rowan looked at the food. "Did you order a threat buffet? I guessed you had not eaten much. I ate the suspicious salad and half a dinner roll. That is not food." It was trying. He gestured to the chair farthest from the door but closest to the second exit. Again she noticed. Again she did not know what to do with it. Simon entered with the plastic bag holding the envelope and set it on the table. Elias did not touch it at first. He stood over it, very still. "Do you recognize it?" Rowan asked. "No. That seems bad. It is not good." Simon took a small knife from his pocket, opened the envelope without touching the flap, and slid the contents onto the table. There were 6 folded pages, a small silver flash drive, and a photograph. Rowan saw the photograph first. It was of her and Elias at table 9. Not the one Violet had sent. This one had been taken from much closer. Rowan was laughing at something, her head turned toward Elias. Elias was looking at her, not smiling exactly, but near enough that anyone could tell the moment had belonged only to them. A black line had been drawn around Rowan's face. Beneath it, someone had written one sentence. "Wrong chair, wrong woman, wrong night." Rowan's stomach turned cold. Elias looked at the photo, then at the words. His face did not harden. It emptied. Somehow that was worse. Simon unfolded the pages. They were covered in columns of numbers, account codes, foundation names, payment dates, and routing details. The top line read, "Ashbourne Children's Community Trust." Rowan leaned forward before she remembered she was frightened. "Wait," she said. Elias looked at her. "What?" "I know that name." His attention sharpened. Rowan reached for the page, then stopped and looked at Simon. "Can I touch this?" Simon glanced at Elias. Elias looked at her, not Simon. "Do you want gloves?" "I want a clean copy and a pencil." 10 minutes later, Rowan sat at the table with photocopied pages spread in front of her. Her hair clipped messily back, a sandwich untouched near her elbow, and fear pushed slightly aside by the oldest comfort she knew, numbers that wanted to confess. Elias stood near the fireplace, silent. Simon waited by the door. Another man had taken the flash drive to a separate room, where someone who apparently knew how to open dangerous things without blowing up the world was checking it. The first page looked like a donor ledger. The second looked like vendor payments. The third listed restricted grant transfers. The fourth made Rowan sit back slowly. "What is it?" Elias asked. She did not answer right away. She was following the pattern. Money always had a rhythm. Honest money moved like a person walking in daylight. It had reasons, names, repeated habits, boring timing. Stolen money moved differently. It circled back. It split itself. It got nervous and changed clothes. "These aren't random," Rowan said at last. "They're layered." "Meaning?" "Meaning someone wanted this to look confusing, but they were lazy in a very expensive way." Elias came closer. "Explain it to me." She glanced up. "Are you asking because you don't know, or because you want to see how I think?" "Yes." "That is not an answer. It is an honest one." Rowan looked back down before her face could warm. "The Ashbourne Trust is connected to Camille's family foundation. I've seen it in public filings. It funds libraries, youth centers, after-school programs, things like that. These payments look like normal outreach costs: furniture, tech supplies, security upgrades, transportation, event staffing, but the amounts are too smooth." "Too smooth?" "Real projects are messy. They cost annoying amounts. $13,862. 4,019. Someone always buys the wrong screws. Someone always forgets tax. But these transfers are clean. 25,000, 40,000, 75. That usually means someone picked numbers that felt believable, instead of numbers that came from invoices. Simon's mouth moved slightly, almost a smile. Elias only watched her. Rowan tapped the fourth page, and here, same vendor appears under 3 names: Ridgeline Community Supply, Ridgeline Supply Group, and RCS Outreach Services. Different accounts, same routing family. The money leaves the foundation, moves through these vendors, then lands somewhere hidden. Where? She followed the lines again, pencil moving in small circles. Then she saw it. Not the full answer, but the shape of one. Her mouth went dry. Toward companies tied to you, she said. Elias did not move. Rowan looked up. Or tied to names people would think are yours. Simon cursed softly. Elias's eyes stayed on the paper. A frame. A careful one. Derek Vale. She heard something in the way he said the name. Not surprise. Recognition with history under it. You know him, Rowan said. I know his family. That is not the same thing. No, it is worse. The door opened, and a younger man with copper hair and a laptop under one arm stepped in. The flash drive is clean enough to open, dirty enough to be rude, he said, then noticed Rowan. Sorry. This is Nora's son, but nobody calls him that, Elias said. His name is Theo. He thinks manners slow down processing speed. Theo grinned. They do. Rowan liked him immediately against her better judgment. Theo placed the laptop on the table and turned it toward Elias, then Rowan. Drive has scanned copies, calendar notes, and one audio file, also a draft press packet accusing Mr. Marsh of using the Ashbourne project for laundering. Rowan stared at him. That's the community library Camille mentioned tonight. Elias looked at her. You spoke with Camille? Briefly. Preston said she was proud of it. A library and outreach center opening soon. Next week, I think. Friday, Elias said. The room got quiet around that word. Rowan looked back at the pages. So someone steals from a public good project, makes it look like you were using it to clean dirty money, and releases the proof at the opening? Theo nodded. That would be the ugly version. What's the uglier version? The packet includes photos from tonight. One of you two, one of Mr. Marsh near Camille's father, one of Derek Vale pretending to laugh with donors like he isn't a waste of a suit. Theo, Elias said. What? He is. Rowan almost laughed, then remembered the photograph with her face circled. Why include me? No one answered quickly enough. She looked at Elias. Why include me? His jaw tightened. Because they saw me look at you. The sentence landed softly, which somehow made it worse. Rowan's hands curled around the pencil. That is not an answer. It is the beginning of one. I don't want to be a beginning of one. I want the whole sentence. Elias held her gaze. Because in my world, interest becomes weakness. If Derek believes I care whether you are frightened, he can use you to divide my attention. And do you? Yes. The honesty came too fast. It struck too clean. Rowan forgot what she meant to say next. Elias looked away first, but not like he regretted saying it, like he regretted the danger attached to it. I can arrange protection for you, he said, discreetly. You can go home tomorrow with Simon and 2 cars. I will handle Derek. There it was, the door closing gently, the soft cage being offered with excellent manners. Rowan sat back. No. His eyes returned to her. No, no. You are in danger because of me. I am in danger because Derek Vale is apparently bad at both crime and social skills. This is not a joke. I know that. I'm funnier when scared. It is one of my least useful traits. Rowan. She stood, because sitting made her feel too easy to manage. Do not tuck me away because I'm inconvenient. You are not inconvenient. I am, actually. That's the whole problem. Derek thought I was decoration, then I spoke. You thought I was a civilian, then I read the numbers. Everyone keeps making the same mistake with nicer lighting. Elias's face was unreadable, but his eyes were not. You are not trained for this world. No, I'm trained for the one where powerful men steal from children and call it administration. Theo made a soft sound. I like her. Elias did not look at him. Leave. Theo picked up his laptop but left the copies. Simon went with him. The door closed, and suddenly the room felt smaller. Rain moved against the windows. The fire shifted. Elias stood between Rowan and the hearth, not blocking her, but impossible to ignore. I am trying to keep you alive. I believe you. Then why are you fighting me? Because alive and hidden are not the same thing. He absorbed that like it hit somewhere old. Rowan softened before she could stop herself. I spent 7 years with a man who edited me down for my own good. My clothes, my jokes, my volume, my food, my anger. He made every smallness sound like care. I know you are not him. I know that. But I also know the shape of a room when someone else starts deciding where I should stand. Elias said nothing for a long moment. Then he stepped aside and gestured toward the table. Where do you want to stand? Her throat tightened, beside the numbers. Then stand there. She wanted to make a joke. She could not find one fast enough. So she sat down again, and Elias sat across from her, not at the head of the table, not in command of the room, but across from her, close enough to listen. They worked until the fire burned low and the windows turned silver with early morning. Theo came and went with files. Simon brought coffee. Elias made 3 calls in a voice so quiet Rowan could not hear the words, only the effect. People woke up, doors opened, records appeared. A woman who managed vendor contracts for Camille's foundation agreed to meet at noon after Elias said her name once and then said nothing for 9 seconds. Rowan found the first real break at 4:37 a.m. There, she said, tapping 2 different pages, same invoice number. Elias leaned closer. His sleeve brushed the edge of her notebook. For 2 vendors. Exactly. One invoice entered twice, but with different descriptions. One says Youth Technology Access, the other says Security Infrastructure. Same amount, same date, same invoice number. That's not a clerical mistake. That's a mirror. A mirror? One real payment. One false payment built to reflect it. Whoever created this needed enough true data to make the false trail hard to dismiss. Derek had access through Camille's family, or someone close to them. Elias's expression darkened. Rowan watched him carefully. Do not go silent and terrifying. Use words. His eyes lifted to hers. Camille's uncle has business with the Vale family. Preston may have married into more trouble than he knows. Then we tell them. Not yet. She narrowed her eyes. Not because I want to manage you, he said before she could speak. Because if Derek knows we found the mirror invoice, he will move the money or scare the witness. Rowan hated that this made sense. Fine. I dislike reasonable arguments, but fine. His mouth curved faintly. Noted. By sunrise, Rowan had slept 23 minutes in a chair with her boots still on. Elias had not slept at all. She woke to find a blanket over her shoulders and him standing by the window, phone to his ear, looking out at the wet garden below. His voice was low. She chooses for herself, he said. That is not a point for debate. Rowan stayed still. A man's voice rumbled faintly through the phone, too distant to hear clearly. Elias's answer was colder. If anyone calls her a liability again, they can say it to me in person. He ended the call and turned. He knew immediately that she had heard enough. Your men think I'm a weakness, she said. My men think in old patterns. And you? He walked back to the table, picked up her pencil, and placed it beside her notebook as if returning a small weapon. I think Derek Vale made the first intelligent mistake of his life when he underestimated you. The warmth that moved through Rowan was quiet and dangerous. She looked away first, because if she didn't, she might start believing things. Her phone buzzed again. Violet. You did not answer my panic essay last night. Rowan. Are you with the handsome criminal? Please define safe using complete sentences. Rowan sighed. My sister is going to murder me. Would you like me to be present? She would start with you. Then I should wear a better suit. Despite everything. Rowan laughed. It came out tired and real. Elias watched it happen like he had been waiting for that sound without knowing. By late morning, Violet had stopped texting and started calling. Rowan ignored the first 2 calls while drinking coffee strong enough to qualify as a legal stimulant. She answered the third because Violet only switched from panic to travel plans after 3. Where are you? Violet demanded. Good morning to you too. Do not good morning me. I saw a photo of you laughing with Elias Marsh. Then you sent me one text saying, long story, safe-ish, which is not a phrase any loving sister uses unless she wants me to die angry. I am safe. I hate the pause before that. There was no pause. There was a spiritual pause. Rowan rubbed her eyes. I'm at a private hotel. With him? Yes, but not like that. Rowan. Nothing happened. Something always happens before people say nothing happened. Across the table, Elias pretended not to listen, badly. Violet's voice sharpened. Put him on the phone. No. Put him on the phone or I will drive to Asheville and bite someone. Rowan covered the phone. My sister wants to interrogate you. Elias held out his hand. She stared. That was not a real offer. It is now. This may hurt your feelings. I have survived worse. Not Violet. He took the phone. Miss Callister. Rowan heard Violet go silent. That never happened. Elias stood, walked to the window, and listened. No, he said after a moment. She is not being used. Another pause. Yes, there is danger. Longer pause. Because lying to you would insult both of you. His eyes moved briefly to Rowan. No, she does not belong to me. Violet said something sharp enough that Rowan could hear the tone if not the words. Elias's face remained calm. I have no intention of making decisions for her. I made that mistake in my head last night, and she corrected me. Rowan looked down at her hands. Violet spoke for a while. Elias listened without interruption. Then he said, You love her loudly. That is inconvenient, but not a flaw. Rowan pressed her lips together. Violet was either touched or preparing a weapon. Elias handed the phone back. Violet said, I don't trust him. I know, but he listens better than Marcus. Rowan closed her eyes for a second. Yes, I'm coming to brunch. What? I'm already in the car. Violet. Send the address, or I'll find the most suspicious hotel in Asheville and start yelling. Rowan ended the call and looked at Elias. She's coming. I gathered. She may ask if you have killed people. I will avoid lying. Maybe lie a little. I thought you valued truth. I value brunch without felony confessions. For the first time since the envelope appeared, Elias smiled fully. It changed his face in a way that felt almost unfair. Less like a feared man, more like a tired one, who had briefly remembered the world could be absurd and survivable. Violet arrived at noon in a rust-colored coat, large sunglasses, and the expression of a woman ready to identify every exit and every red flag in the building. She was smaller than Rowan, sharper in movement, with the same dark eyes and none of Rowan's patience. She hugged Rowan hard enough to make breathing optional, then held her at arm's length and looked her over. You look exhausted. I was threatened by stationery. Violet's eyes moved to Elias. And you let that happen? Rowan said, That is not how crime works. Elias inclined his head. I am sorry she was brought into this. That was not an answer. No, it was an apology. Violet stared at him. I don't like charming men. I have rarely been accused of charm. Good, then don't start. Brunch happened in the private dining room because Elias said the public restaurant had too many windows, which made Violet ask if this was a meal or a siege. Rowan expected the meal to be unbearable. It was not. It was strange, tense, sometimes funny, and once, when Violet asked Elias what he wanted from Rowan, so quiet that even the server seemed to disappear. Elias set down his coffee cup. Nothing she does not choose to give. That sounds rehearsed. It is not. What happens when choosing her puts her in danger? His gaze did not move. Then I stand close enough to help, and far enough not to become another danger. Violet's expression changed. Not trust, not yet, but recognition, maybe. A door opened 1 inch. Rowan looked at her sister. I'm helping with the financial trail. You could come home. I could, but you won't. No. Violet sighed, and beneath the anger was fear, so familiar it hurt. You spent your whole life having people laugh at you, dismiss you, talk over you, and now a crime family has discovered you're competent. Forgive me if I'm not thrilled. Rowan reached across the table and took her hand. I'm scared too. Violet's fingers tightened. Good. Be scared. Just don't be stupid. I can multitask. Elias looked between them. Something in his face softened in a careful, private way, as if he was watching a kind of love his world did not know how to make. After Violet left, with 3 warnings, 2 hugs, and 1 very direct threat to Elias involving garden shears, Rowan and Elias returned to the sitting room. Theo had new information waiting. The duplicated invoice connected to a company registered under a dead man's name. That company had purchased security equipment for the community library opening. Cameras, access panels, a temporary media feed system. Rowan read the report twice. Derek isn't waiting until after the opening. Elias's voice went flat. No. He's using the opening. Theo nodded. The false evidence packet is probably meant to go live during the event. Big crowd, donors, local press, Camille's family, Preston, Mr. Marsh, standing near the project he quietly funded. Perfect public mess. And the security system? Rowan asked. Theo's grin vanished. That's the part I don't like. Elias looked at him. Say it. The vendor Derek used installed the media routing for the screens and press feed. If he controls the feed, he controls what the room sees. Rowan felt the old, cold pattern form in her mind. A wedding photo, a false ledger, a public event, a crowd ready to believe the simplest version of a scandal. He's not just framing you, she said to Elias. He's building a story. Elias's eyes held hers. And what story is that? Rowan looked at the papers spread across the table, then at the photograph from the envelope. Her own face circled like a target. That the dangerous man corrupted the charity. That the beautiful family got betrayed. That the fat woman beside him was either foolish enough to be used or desperate enough to help. No one spoke. Then Elias said, "He will not use you that way." Rowan picked up her pencil. Her hand was steady now. "No," she said. "He won't." That evening, Elias drove her himself to the community library while the building was closed. Not because he did not trust his men, he said, but because Rowan had asked who usually drove him when he needed to think, and he had answered, no one. The library stood on the edge of a neighborhood where old brick warehouses met new coffee shops, and families still knew which blocks changed first when money arrived. The building was beautiful in a quiet way. Warm stone, tall windows, a children's garden in progress along one side, painted letters over the door that read, Marigold House Community Library and Outreach Center. Rowan stood in front of it and felt something unexpected. Wonder. The soft kind. The kind that made her forget danger for half a breath. "This is what you helped fund," she said. Elias stood beside her, hands in his coat pockets. quietly. Why quietly? Because if my name is first on a good thing, people start looking for the bad thing under it. And is there one? There are always bad things under money. That is not an answer. No, he said. But it is true. Inside, the library smelled like fresh paint, wood, and unopened books. Shelves waited to be filled. But small chairs sat upside down on tables in the children's room. A mural of mountains and foxes covered one wall. In the back, a row of computers had been installed for job applications, homework, housing forms, and all the little impossible tasks people without home internet were expected to solve anyway. Rowan touched the edge of one desk. This matters. Yes, you should let people know you helped. I do not need applause. Maybe not. But the neighborhoods you help deserve to know powerful people are not all takers. He looked at her. And you? What about me? Do you believe that? She thought of Marcus, Derek, every donor whose clean smile hid missing money. Then she thought of Elias moving her to the front seat so she could see the road. I'm considering it, she said. They found the media room near the back. Theo was already there with 2 laptops, 3 cables in his mouth, and the haunted look of a man offended by bad wiring. Rowan and Elias reviewed the access logs while Theo tested the system. By midnight, they had proof that Derek's vendor installed a hidden remote channel into the event screens. By 1, Rowan found a transfer tying that vendor to the mirrored invoice. By 2, Elias had enough to end the matter violently, legally, or both. But Derek moved first. A message arrived on Rowan's phone from an unknown number. You look proud of yourself. A photo followed. Rowan standing inside the library beside Elias, taken through the window less than an hour earlier. Elias crossed the room before she could speak. Another message appeared. Ask him what happens to women who become evidence. The lights inside the library flickered once, then went out. Darkness filled the room. For a single second, no one moved. Then Elias's hand found Rowan's in the dark, not grabbing, not pulling, just there. His voice was very quiet. Stay beside me. Rowan held his hand tighter. This time she did. The dark inside the library had a sound. Rowan heard it before she understood it. A soft electric sigh as the lights died above the shelves and the brand new computers went black one by one. Then came the rain against the tall windows, harder now, tapping at the glass like fingers that knew where to find them. For one strange second, Marigold House no longer felt like a library waiting for children, job seekers, tired parents, and old men who needed somewhere warm to read the paper. It felt like a stage after the curtain dropped too early, with everyone still standing in their places and the wrong person holding the script. Elias's hand was around hers, not tight enough to hurt, not loose enough to leave. Rowan could feel the steady pressure of his fingers, the warmth of his palm, the controlled stillness in him. He had said, "Stay beside me," and for once, the words had not sounded like an order. They had sounded like a man admitting that beside him was the only place he could bear to have her when the dark came looking. Theo whispered from somewhere near the media table, "That is not supposed to happen." Rowan swallowed. "I was hoping you would say something more technical." "That was technical. The system is not supposed to become a cave." Elias did not laugh. His thumb moved once over Rowan's knuckles, almost too small to notice. "Theo, backup power." "Already trying." A faint glow appeared from Theo's laptop, lighting his face from below and making him look like a nervous ghost with excellent cheekbones. The small screen showed lines of code Rowan did not understand, windows opening and closing too fast, warnings blooming in red. Outside the media room, the library stretched black and quiet. Shelves became shadows. The children's mural turned into a smear of blue mountains and fox eyes. Somewhere near the front entrance, something clicked. Rowan heard it. Elias heard it too. His body shifted slightly in front of hers, then stopped. He did not pull her behind him. He looked at her once in the pale laptop light, and she understood the correction he had made before she could say a word. He wanted to shield her. Instead, he made room for her to move with him. "Front door?" she whispered. "Maybe." "That is a terrible maybe. There are worse ones." Theo looked up. "I would love to not meet them." Another click came, then a low hum. One emergency light flickered on near the hall, painting everything in weak red. It made the library look wounded. Elias drew his phone from his pocket and tapped the screen once. Simon. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Theo's fingers paused over the keyboard. Signal jammer? Elias's face went colder. Or the building is wrapped. Rowan hated how calmly he said that. She also hated that she understood what it meant without asking. Someone had cut the power, blocked the signal, and entered the building while Derek's message still glowed on her phone. Ask him what happens to women who become evidence. It had sounded theatrical when she read it. In the dark, it sounded practical. Her phone buzzed again. She flinched. Elias looked down at it with her. Another message. Media feed activates in 20 minutes. Smile for the donors. Theo whispered a word his mother would probably not appreciate. Rowan stared at the message until the fear became something sharper. He's already scheduled it. Elias looked at her. What? The release, the false packet. If the feed activates in 20 minutes, he doesn't need the opening tomorrow to start the scandal. He only needs access to the system and the press list. He's moving early, because he knows we found something. Theo turned back to the laptop. She's right. There's a remote upload queued into the event server. It's dormant, but not for long. Can you stop it? Elias asked. Theo's mouth tightened. I can if the system lets me in. And if it does not, then everyone with tomorrow's media credentials gets a very ugly midnight preview. Rowan stepped closer to the table, pulling Elias with her because he was still holding her hand. The papers were scattered in the laptop glow. Mirrored invoices, vendor names, access logs, false transfers. The skeleton of Derek's story was all there. Elias Marsh, criminal benefactor. Camille's family, betrayed donors. Rowan Callister, unknown woman, sudden companion, possible bookkeeper, possible accomplice. It was ugly because it was easy. People liked easy scandals. They required less thinking. She looked at the access logs again. Dio, can you show me the vendor login list? Now? No. After the murder lighting gets worse. He opened a file and spun the laptop toward her. Rowan leaned over it, eyes moving across names, dates, credentials, permissions. It was harder to read on a screen, harder still with her pulse punching at her ribs, but panic had always been terrible at math. Numbers did not care if her hands were cold. Elias watched the hallway. Theo watched the upload timer. Rowan watched the pattern. There, she said. Theo bent beside her. Where? Marigold Ave and Marigold Ave backup. Yeah. Main and backup vendor credentials. No. Look at the creation times. The backup was created before the main. Theo blinked. That's weird. That's not weird. That's fake. Someone made the real hidden account first, then made the visible one afterward so it would look normal. The backup has higher privileges. Theo's fingers flew. I hate that you're right. I mean, I like it emotionally, but professionally I'm offended. A soft sound came from the hall. Footsteps. Not rushed. Not heavy. Careful. Elias released Rowan's hand only to reach into his jacket. When his hand came back, there was a gun in it, black and quiet. Rowan's stomach dropped, but she did not move away. This was part of him too. She had known it from the first moment at Table 9, known it in the way people lowered their voices around him, in the way Derek smiled like an enemy who already believed in blood. Still, knowing and seeing were not the same. Elias saw her look at the weapon. Something moved across his face. "I will not let anyone near you," he said. Rowan's voice came out softer than she expected. "I know." The footsteps stopped. A man spoke from the dark beyond the media room. "Mr. Marsh." Elias turned fully toward the doorway. "Vale." Derek Vale stepped into the emergency light as if he had been invited. That was the worst part. Not the gun in his hand, though there was one. Not the two men behind him, both wearing dark clothes and blank faces. It was the casual way he entered the room, as if libraries, weddings, charities, and women's fear were all rooms his family had paid for long ago. His blonde hair was damp from the rain. His suit was still perfect. His smile was a little less polished now, but more honest in its cruelty. "Rowan," he said, as if greeting her at brunch, "you do keep choosing strange chairs." Rowan's mouth went dry. "And you keep entering rooms where nobody likes you. We all have habits." Theo made a tiny sound that might have been fear, trying not to become laughter. Derek's eyes flicked to him, then back to Rowan. "Still funny. That's disappointing. I thought fear would improve your taste." "It rarely improves men." Elias's voice cut through the space, low and deadly. "You speak to her again, and this ends badly for you." Derek smiled at him. "It already ends badly for me. That's the trouble with men like us, Elias. We both know when a room has passed the point of polite repair. You should have stayed at the wedding. I should have done many things. Chosen better cousins, avoided ambitious fathers, invested in uglier charities, but here we are." Rowan looked from Derek to the men behind him, then to the laptop. The timer in the corner of the screen had dropped below 17 minutes. The upload was still coming. Derek had not come only to scare them. He had come to make sure the story launched, and maybe to make sure Rowan did not remain available to correct it. Her voice steadied, because the alternative was worse. "You stole from a community project." Derek sighed. "You say that like community projects are holy. They are buildings with donors' names on plaques. Money goes in, influence comes out. Don't look at me like I invented the machine. You robbed children's programs and tried to frame him for it. I used an existing public belief. That is not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing with better shoes." His smile tightened. "You know, I understand now why he looked at you like that." The gun in Elias's hand lifted slightly. Derek noticed. His own men shifted. The whole room tightened around one breath. "Careful," Derek said. "The power may be out, but the cameras are not. My system is still recording locally. Imagine the first image the press receives being Elias Marsh murdering a man inside a children's library." Elias did not lower the gun. "Imagine how little I care." "But you do care." Derek's eyes slid to Rowan. "Now, that is what makes this beautiful." Rowan felt Elias change beside her, not visibly, not enough for Derek to read clearly. But she felt the air around him go from anger to restraint, and she realized Derek was not only trying to trap him with evidence, he was trying to trap him with instinct. Hurt Rowan, provoke Elias, capture the violence, release the scandal. A feared man acting exactly as the world expected. A woman turned into proof. A library turned into a crime scene. Simple story. Easy lie. Rowan stepped forward before Elias could stop her. "Derek," she said. His eyes found hers, amused. "Yes, you used Ridgeline twice." The amusement faded by a fraction. She almost smiled. There it was. Not enough for everyone. Enough for her. "The mirror invoice," she continued. "Same number, different vendor shell, different purpose. You needed the false transfer to line up with a real one, but you forgot that fake money looks too clean when it moves. Real invoices are messy. Yours are pretty. That was your first mistake." Derek's jaw tightened. "You are not as clever as you think." "No, I'm exactly as clever as I think. That's why people find me tiring." Theo whispered. I really do like her. Derek ignored him. None of that matters if the story publishes first. That was your second mistake, Rowan said, thinking publishing a story is the same as controlling it. The upload timer dropped to 15 minutes. Derek laughed softly. Do you believe a room full of donors will care about your little spreadsheet once Elias's name is on the accusation? No, Rowan said. That's why I'm not sending it to donors. For the first time, Derek went fully still. Elias looked at her, but she kept her eyes on Derek. She could feel the shape of the idea arriving while she spoke, the way she sometimes did in audits when one number opened a locked door in her mind. Derek had built the lie for the public. He had built it for scandal, shame, fear, speed. But legal destruction did not need applause. It needed copies. It needed timestamps. It needed a trail that could not be frightened by a gun in a dark room. The flash drive you sent us, Rowan said. That was your third mistake. Derek's expression barely changed, but the man behind him shifted his weight. You wanted Elias to see the threat. You wanted him to panic, to move money, call allies, expose himself. But you gave us the structure. You gave us your timing, your fake story, your vendor map. Theo doesn't need to stop the upload first. He only needs to make sure the right people receive the real packet at the same time. Theo went perfectly quiet beside the laptop. Elias understood before Derek did. Rowan saw it in his eyes, the sudden sharp light. Derek's voice lowered. You're bluffing. Rowan finally smiled. I'm a fat woman at a rich wedding, Derek. Men like you have been mistaking my patience for bluffing my entire life. The room held still. Then Theo started typing. Derek snapped his gun toward him. Stop. Elias moved faster. Not with wild rage. Not with the chaos Derek wanted. He stepped into the line of fire with cold precision. Gun raised. Body angled between Derek and Theo, without touching Rowan. Derek's men raised their weapons. Rowan's heart stopped. No one fires, Elias said. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. For a second, Rowan understood why rooms quieted before he entered them. It was not only fear, it was certainty. Elias Marsh did not sound like a man hoping to be obeyed. He sounded like the consequence that arrived after hope had failed. Derek stared at him. You won't shoot. Not while my cameras are watching. No, Elias said. I won't. Derek's smile started to return. Then Elias added, Simon will. The door behind Derek opened. Simon and 3 men entered from the back hall, guns drawn, silent as shadows that had learned discipline. Derek's men froze. One of them cursed under his breath. Theo kept typing like a man who had decided survival and computer work could happen together. Derek's face changed. How? Elias's eyes were flat. Old buildings have old tunnels. You should have checked the original plans before you bought the new security system. Rowan glanced at him. You knew. I suspected. You might have mentioned the secret tunnels. I did not want to sound dramatic. Despite the guns, despite the darkness, despite Derek's fury, Rowan almost laughed. It came out as a shaky breath. Derek looked between them and saw something he did not like. Not romance. Not only that, partnership. The thing he had thought impossible because men like him did not understand power that made room for someone else. The upload timer hit 10 minutes. Theo said, Rowan, I need the routing family. What? The accounts. The ones that prove common control. Say them. She moved beside him, eyes on the copies. RCS ends in 4481. Ridgeline Community ends in 9026. Ridgeline Supply Group ends in 1173. Same bank branch, same officer initials on the verification stamp. Use the vendor registration dates. They cluster after the Ashbourne grant approval. Theo typed. Got it. Derek's voice sharpened. This means nothing. It means motive, Rowan said. Opportunity. Access. Fraud. Conspiracy. And if your audio file says what I think it says, probably intent. Elias looked at Simon. Simon reached into his coat and removed a small device. Derek's face went pale for the first time. Rowan saw it. "Oh, you didn't know we opened that yet?" Theo said without looking up, "Dirty enough to be rude, not dirty enough to stop me." The audio played from the laptop speakers, low at first, then clearer. Derek's voice filled the dark library. "Make Marsh look greedy. Make the woman look bought. Make Camille's family look betrayed. By the time they correct the story, the city will have already chosen what it believes." No one spoke, not even Derek. There are moments when lies do not collapse loudly. They simply lose their ability to stand. The timer hit 6 minutes. Theo slapped one key, then another. Real packet sent to the State Charity Bureau. Federal Financial Crimes Contact. Camille's Foundation Counsel. Preston. Violet because she scares me. And every board member Derek's draft packet was going to hit. Rowan looked at him. "You sent it to my sister. She was in your emergency contacts. She is going to become unbearable. She already sent 3 question marks and a knife emoji." Elias did not take his eyes off Derek. "And the upload?" Theo smiled thinly. "Redirected." The screens along the wall flickered on. Not with Derek's false evidence, with the real ledger. Rows of payments, side-by-side invoice matches, shell vendors, timestamps, access logs, and Derek's own recorded words appeared across the library monitors in clean, brutal sequence. The children's room screen lit with the vendor map. The front lobby screen showed the audio transcript. The media room monitor displayed one final line in bold black text. Derek Vale controlled the fraudulent vendor network. Rowan looked at Theo. Theo shrugged. "I made it readable." Derek stared at the screens as if the building itself had betrayed him. Elias lowered his gun slightly. "It is over." "No," Derek said, but the word had no power left inside it. His phone began ringing, then one of his men's phones, then another. Calls blooming in the dark like alarms. Allies waking, lawyers panicking. Donors abandoning ship before the fire reached their sleeves. Derek looked down at the screen in his hand, and whatever he saw there stripped the last polish from his face. He looked at Rowan with hatred so clean it almost felt honest. "You think this makes you important?" Rowan's chest tightened, but she did not look away. "No, I was important before you noticed. That was the part you missed." Elias looked at her then, and the whole room seemed to breathe around the words. Simon stepped forward and took Derek's gun. Another of Elias's men disarmed the 2 behind him. No one fired. No blood hit the new carpet. No image of Elias Marsh becoming the monster Derek had written for him. Only Derek Vale, exposed under emergency lights in a library he had tried to turn into a weapon. The police arrived 12 minutes later. Rowan did not ask how Elias had convinced them to come quickly, and Elias did not explain. Camille arrived soon after, in a long coat over her pajamas, hair loose, face pale with the shock of a bride whose wedding night had become evidence. Preston was with her, still wearing the shirt from his reception, looking like he had aged 3 years since cake. Camille stood in front of the screens and covered her mouth. "He used my family." Rowan stepped toward her. "Yes." Camille looked at Elias, then Rowan. "And you stopped him?" Rowan almost corrected her, almost said Elias did. Theo did. Simon did. The evidence did. But she stopped herself. She had done this old shrinking trick too many times, giving her work away so no one could accuse her of wanting credit. "Yes," Rowan said. "We did." Camille's eyes filled. She crossed the room and hugged Rowan so suddenly Rowan froze before hugging her back. "Thank you," Camille whispered. "I don't even know what you saved yet." Rowan looked past her at the shelves, the tiny chairs, the computers, the garden waiting outside in the rain. "I think this place." By morning, the first story was not Derek's lie, it was his exposure, The Charity Bureau confirmed an investigation. Camille's Family Foundation issued a careful but sharp statement. Vendors disappeared from websites. Lawyers began speaking in language designed to sound calm, while everything burned. Derek's allies abandoned him so quickly, it was almost graceful. One family denied him. Another expressed concern. A third claimed they had always found him difficult. Rowan watched the news unfold from Elias's sitting room at the private hotel, wrapped in the same blanket from the night before, drinking coffee while Violet paced in front of the fireplace and threatened to fight several people who were not present. "You could have died," Violet said. "I know. You are not supposed to say that calmly. I'm too tired to perform panic at your preferred standard." Violet pointed at Elias. "And you?" Elias looked up from his phone. "Yes, I still don't trust you. I know. But if my sister insists on doing crimes with you, you make sure she eats." Rowan groaned. "Violet." Elias nodded solemnly. "Understood. And sleeps, of course. And does not get shot in a library. That is also my preference." Violet stared at him, trying hard not to like the answer. "You're annoying. I have been told." Rowan laughed into her coffee, and for a moment the room became almost normal. Almost. The danger did not vanish in one clean sweep. Real endings rarely did. Derek was arrested, then released under conditions, then pulled back into court when more accounts surfaced. His family distanced themselves publicly while fighting privately over what he might say to reduce his own fall. Reporters discovered Elias had quietly funded Marigold House through layers of community trusts, and the public did what it always did when confronted with a complicated person. It argued. Some called him a criminal washing his name with good deeds. Some called him a necessary devil. Some called Rowan a brave whistleblower. Others called her a foolish woman seduced by power. A few called her worse things, because the internet allowed cowards to buy megaphones with bad spelling. Rowan read some of it the first day. Then Elias found her at the hotel table, staring at a comment that said he must be using her because no man like him would want a woman like that. He did not ask permission to take the phone from her hand. He held out his palm and waited. She gave it to him. He read the comment. His face changed in a way that made her glad the commenter lived behind a screen. "Do not," she said. "I have said nothing. You looked like you were about to buy the internet and burn it down. That was one option. Expensive. Worth considering." She leaned back in her chair, suddenly more tired than amused. "People have been saying some version of that my whole life." Elias set the phone face down on the table. "That I could not want you? That anyone could, without a joke attached, without an apology, without it being a favor." He sat across from her slowly. The room was quiet around them. Rain had passed, leaving the windows bright with a pale afternoon sun. Elias looked at her as if she had placed something fragile and furious between them and dared him to mishandle it. "I will not insult you by pretending I know what that has been like," he said. "Good. But I will tell you what I know." She looked down. "Elias." "No." His voice was gentle, but it held. "Let me finish." So she did. "I have spent most of my life being treated like a weapon first, and a man second. Men fear me, use me, flatter me, challenge me, betray me. Women are warned about me. Families whisper when I enter. Children are moved from my path before anyone asks if I would ever harm them. Some of that is earned. Some of it is convenient for people who prefer simple stories." His eyes stayed on hers. "The night I met you, you looked at me and saw the performance. Then you spoke to the man underneath it." Rowan's throat tightened. "I looked at you," he continued, "and I saw a woman who had been dismissed by fools and still became the sharpest person in the room. I saw humor where other people expected shame. I saw courage that did not need me to announce itself. I saw you move a chair toward a cruel man because you were tired of letting cruelty speak from a distance. Her eyes burned, and she hated that tears made everything blurry when she wanted to see him clearly. So no, Elias said quietly. I do not want you as a joke, a favor, a symbol, or an apology. I want you because when you enter a room, the truth gets nervous. Rowan let out a broken little laugh and wiped under one eye. That is a ridiculous thing to say to a bookkeeper. It is an accurate thing to say to you. She stared at him. You make it very hard to remain suspicious. I apologize. No, you don't. No, he said. I don't. After that, things changed slowly and all at once. Rowan went home for 3 days because Violet insisted and because Elias did not argue, which somehow made leaving harder. Her apartment felt both familiar and smaller than before, with its crooked bookshelf, tax folders stacked by the window, and the mug Marcus had once called childish because it had a fox wearing glasses on it. Rowan threw the mug away, then took it out of the trash because she liked the fox, and Marcus did not get to ruin ceramic animals after leaving her life. Elias called the first night at 9, not midnight, not mysteriously. 9, like a normal person making a normal call, except his voice still made her sit down on the couch and forget what she had been doing. Are you safe? He asked. Yes. Have you eaten? Violet made pasta and threatened my smoke alarm. Good. That the alarm survived. That someone is taking care of you loudly. Rowan smiled. Are you jealous of my sister? Terrified. As you should be. Their calls became a ritual, not because either of them named it, but because both kept showing up. Some nights they discussed the investigation. Some nights Rowan explained non-profit accounting in ways Elias claimed were violent toward the imagination. Some nights Elias told her about neighborhoods where his family had taken too much and the work he had spent years doing quietly to put something back. He did not make himself innocent. That mattered. He did not polish the truth until it became harmless. He let her see the shadows and waited for her to decide whether she could stand near them. She did not rush. Neither did he. 2 weeks after Derek's arrest, Rowan returned to Asheville for the official reopening of Marigold House. The event had been delayed, rebuilt, secured, and stripped of every vendor Derek had touched. Camille insisted Rowan attend. Preston called and said there would be better cake this time and no suspicious seating arrangements. Violet came too, claiming she wanted to support the library, but mostly watching Elias with the expression of a guard dog in lipstick. The day was bright and cold. Children ran across the front walk with paper bookmarks. Volunteers stacked books on folding tables. A local news crew stood near the entrance, speaking softly now, careful not to turn the place into another scandal. Camille cut the ribbon with shaking hands, and Preston standing beside her, proud and emotional. Elias remained near the back of the crowd, not hidden, not centered, just present. Rowan stood beside him. People looked, of course. They whispered too. Some recognized her from articles. Some recognized him from darker stories. A woman near the garden glanced between them and frowned as if the sight did not match the category in her head. Rowan felt the old instinct rise, the need to adjust herself, explain herself, make the room more comfortable by becoming less visible. Then Elias's hand brushed hers. Not taking, asking. Rowan looked at him. He did not say anything. She took his hand. Let them look. Inside the library, the screens showed children's reading programs, job workshops, free tax clinics, and after-school meals. No false evidence, no threats, no cruel man's script. Rowan walked through the rooms and felt wonder again. Softer this time. Safer, though not simple. Children sat on rugs under the mountain mural. An older man used one of the computers with help from a volunteer. A teenage girl stood in front of the mystery shelf as if choosing a book might change the day. Maybe it would. Elias watched Rowan watching all of it. You're smiling. he said. So are you. I am not. You're doing the haunted rich man version. That sounds serious. It is. Symptoms include soft eyes and forgetting to look intimidating. His mouth curved. I will recover. I hope not completely. They stepped out into the garden near sunset, away from the crowd. The library's side garden was small but beautiful, with stone paths, winter herbs, young trees, and a wooden bench beneath an arbor waiting for spring vines. The air smelled like cold earth and coffee from the refreshment table. Voices drifted from inside, warm and distant. Rowan ran her hand along the back of the bench. This is where Derek wanted everything to break, she said. Yes. And now there are children inside arguing over beanbags. A terrible defeat for him. Devastating. Elias stood beside her, quiet for too long. Rowan looked at him. You're doing the thing. What thing? The silence with architecture. I did not know my silence had architecture. It has pillars. He laughed softly, and the sound still surprised her with its rough warmth. Then he reached into his coat. Rowan's entire body went still. Elias. He paused. Yes? If that is a gun, this is a very confusing date. For one stunned second, he stared at her. Then he laughed for real, head lowering, shoulders moving, the sound escaping him like something that had been locked away and finally picked the lock itself. Rowan laughed too, because fear had left so many rooms inside her, and joy kept arriving in the strangest ones. When he looked up, his eyes were bright. It is not a gun, he said. Good. It is a ring. Rowan stopped laughing. The garden seemed to quiet around them. The voices inside the library softened into a distant hum. Elias took a small box from his coat pocket, but he did not open it immediately. He held it like a man who had faced guns, betrayal, public ruin, and death, but found this particular object more dangerous than all of them. Rowan's heart began to pound. Elias, she whispered. I know this is fast. It is extremely fast. Yes. Recklessly fast. Yes. Suspiciously shiny, probably. A little. She pressed a hand to her chest. I'm going to need you to continue before I start narrating my own panic. He stepped closer, then stopped at a distance that still left her room to breathe, to refuse, to choose. Of course he did. That, more than the ring, nearly undid her. The night we met, he said, everyone expected me to frighten you. Reasonable of them. And everyone expected you to make yourself smaller. Her throat tightened. You did not. You moved a chair. You looked a cruel man in the face and made him say his cruelty out loud. You made me laugh when I had forgotten I could. You read numbers like they were confessions. You saw the parts of me people whisper about, and you did not pretend they were not there, but you also saw the parts no one asks about. Rowan's eyes filled, but she stayed still. I cannot promise you a simple life, Elias said. I will not insult you with that. My world has teeth. My name carries shadows. There will be people who call you too ordinary for me, and people who call me too dangerous for you. They will be wrong in different ways. A tear slipped down her cheek. She let it. What I can promise, he continued, voice lower now, is that I will never ask you to become smaller so I can feel larger. I will never call control protection and expect you to thank me for the cage. I will stand beside you when you want me there, behind you when you ask for space, and in front of you only when you tell me to block the wind. Rowan laughed through the tears. That was almost normal until the wind. I am doing my best. You sound like you're negotiating a crime family merger. His mouth softened. I was afraid of that. Very serious tone. Strong asset language. I have more. I'm sure you do. He opened the box. The ring was not enormous. That surprised her. It was beautiful. Deep green at the center, surrounded by small diamonds like light caught in water. It looked less like a trophy and more like a secret garden someone had decided to trust to a hand. Elias lowered himself to one knee. Rowan covered her mouth. Not because she was unsure. Because some younger version of her, some 12-year-old girl in a church hallway, some 28-year-old woman in a dressing room while Marcus frowned at a dress, some lonely person driving to a wedding alone and promising herself she would leave before the slow songs, had never imagined being asked like this. Not hidden, not apologized for. Not chosen despite herself, but chosen entire. Rowan Callister, Elias said, and now his voice shook just enough to break her. Will you marry me? She looked at him on one knee, in the garden beside the library Derek had tried to ruin, beside the building she had helped save, under a winter sky turning violet over Asheville. She thought of Table 9, pushed to the edge of the room. She thought of the empty chair at Derek's table. She thought of Elias's hand in the dark, steady beside hers. She thought of every person who had ever mistaken her for a symbol, and every door that had opened once she stopped asking to be placed somewhere convenient. Yes, she said. Elias went still, as if the word had struck him. Rowan smiled through her tears. But only because you survived Violet, respected my spreadsheet, and did not make the diamond big enough to injure pedestrians. He laughed as he slid the ring onto her finger. His hands were steady, but his eyes were not. When he stood, Rowan caught his face between her hands and kissed him, before he could say anything too beautiful and make her cry harder. Inside the library, someone gasped. Then Violet shouted, "I knew it!" Rowan pulled back and turned toward the window. Her sister, Camille, Preston, Theo, Simon, and at least 6 children were watching from inside. Theo gave 2 thumbs up. Violet was crying and pretending she was not. Preston looked personally offended that he had not been warned. Camille had both hands over her heart. Rowan looked back at Elias. So much for private. I chose a garden beside a public library during an event attended by your sister. That may have been poor strategy. Terrible strategy. I was nervous. The admission was so simple that she kissed him again. Later, people would still talk. Some would say Elias Marsh had finally found a woman brave enough to soften him. They would be wrong. Rowan had not softened him. She had seen the softness he had buried and made it feel less dangerous to bring into the light. Others would say Rowan Callister had been transformed by love, as if love were a spell that made a woman acceptable. They would be wrong too. Rowan had not become worthy by being chosen. She had been worthy at Table 9, in the green dress, before Elias knew her name, before Derek opened his mouth, before anyone thought to look. Love did not rescue her from being overlooked. It gave her someone who looked properly. Months later, when the Marigold House garden bloomed with real vines over the arbor and children left chalk drawings along the stone path, Rowan and Elias returned for a small donor dinner. Not a wedding, not a gala. Just a warm evening with folding chairs, paper lanterns, too much lemonade, and Preston making a speech that was only a little too long. Camille had insisted on handling the seating chart herself. Rowan found her place card near the center table this time. Elias's was beside hers. She picked it up and smiled. "What?" he asked. Table 9 would be proud. He looked toward the edge of the garden, where a few extra chairs had been placed for late arrivals beneath the trees. It was never a bad table. "No?" "No," he said, taking her hand. It knew what everyone else did not. Rowan leaned against him lightly, watching the library glow golden in the dusk. Once, a seating chart had tried to hide 2 inconvenient people at the edge of a room, a fat woman too sharp to be harmless, a feared man too tired to be only a monster. The world had expected one to shrink and the other to intimidate. Instead, she had moved a chair, he had made room beside him, and somewhere between danger, laughter, ledgers, and the soft dark of a library, they had found the one person brave enough to truly see them.